Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Craft of the Draft podcast. Another big week of footy gone, and question of the day, I put this out on Instagram, put it on the Instagram stories. I'm a big round ball fan. You not so much, but I'm watching the Euros at the moment, as I'm sure a lot of people are that watch, possibly that listen to this podcast. But my question was, who would win the Golden Boot in the Euros competition? And I'll read out a few of the responses, but I'll give my answer first. Would be Jake Girardi from the Western Jets. If you had the same, really? You had the same?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, well that's...
Out of all the players you could have picked in the whole Tunnel League...
I'm not going to go with a tall forward because unless they're scoring headers from corners, not happening, and a defender's not going to... Unless you're a Virgil van Dijk, but otherwise, I'm glad we have the same answer. But I'm going to read through some of them now. Lockie Hogan got a few mentions. Apparently he was soccer captain back at school. Whether that's true or not, I guess we'll find that out. Pat said Tom Wenzel. Harry Ryan is not a bad shout. He would definitely be a bit of a snake up forward. River Stevens could also see that. A few Jimmy Barrett's interesting, seeing him with the round ball. Hunter Wright, Oscar Cafiso, Gab Stumpf, Lucas McInerney, Lockie Fitzgerald, a few out there. That'd be interesting. Maybe I'm sure a few clubs do a bit of 5v5 soccer drills, to lighten things up at training. But that's my question of the day. I'm big Italian man.
Jack Ryan would probably be another one I'd like to see in the round ball game.
Who's your prediction to win the Euros? I know you're so much, you're into it so much. Who do you reckon's going to get it?
Can I say France? Do I sound stupid by saying
No, you're
France?
going with the favourite, really.
Okay,
so there you go. But straight into Talent League action. I'll talk about SAWA and then we'll finish with our second version of the statement makers for the boys, and there'll be a girls one once there's a few champs games to be played a bit later this month. But we'll start on Friday night. Good down at Frankston. It was a past players event for the Stingrays, and both saw this, and Dandy got up by 50 points in a pretty expected result. But I'll let you touch on Charlie Orchard first, who was probably the player of the night and got a few good looks from the past players who gave him the man of the match in the end.
He was one who was really impressive with his intercepting down back, and he's one that I've noticed in the last 3 or 4 games that I've watched the Dandenong Stingrays, with his ability to just cut off the high ball coming inside 50, and he doesn't let his direct opponent have a say on the game with that marking ability, but also with that defensive desperation to get back on the last line, work back hard, and really mop up when his team really needs it. He's a calm presence down there. There was a mark he took late in the game, certainly in the last quarter, where he just sort of stuck one hand out and it stuck. And those were the sort of marks he was taking all night. He would have taken 7 intercept marks for the night at least. He was credited with 9 marks in all and was a real standout. So he took what's already been a high standard of footy for him in the last month or so to another level on Friday night.
I'll touch on Harry Dowden, who, when you go from start to finish of this game, I thought he started superbly and kicked a really nice goal to set the tone early from 50 metres on the run, and was very poised, and I thought he showed a lot of good strength for his size as well, especially kind of just outside 50, was able to really control his ball movement and find that next pass really well. Took a really strong contested mark outside 50 as well, which is another added element to his game, and nailed another set shot. I just thought he was really on early. His pressure was there. His just tactical awareness was all there. Thought he just showed some really nice elements of his game. Yeah,
playing up forward. He's obviously run through the midfield as well, and then probably had a quiet patch, but then finished really strongly as well. One who I liked as well was Jordan Doherty. I thought he, against, and we have to touch on it, a very inexperienced Oakley side. I was speaking to someone from Oakley on the night, and they said they only expect that 3 of those players are going to be there when schoolboys return. Kobe Eskew, Lucas Tovey and Luke Quainer. The others will, potentially play some strong footy and look to push their way into it, but that's sort of the way you'd read it at the moment. But Jordan Doherty was one who really capitalised on his opportunities. Not only was he really good in the ruck battle, but I thought in general play just really clean for a big guy, and we have touched on it before, but certainly he's one touch, and that's not something you always associate with key position players.
100%. He's got an ability like a midfielder to just burst out and surprise you a little bit. I guess we might as well touch on Ben Hopkins. Ben Hopkins. I thought he had some nice moments, but the 2 I meant to say was Harvey Langford and Cooper Hines, who, yeah, they just keep ticking over really, really nicely, I thought. Your opinions?
Yeah, Cooper Hines kicked a couple of goals in the first quarter, and that really set the tone for his evening. And Harvey Langford really balanced performance as well. Some others from the Dandenong Stingrays that I thought were good. I thought Tyson Anik played a really good game. A bottom major is really growing into his role. Same with Quinn Harvey, who debuted a few weeks ago as 23rd man. It's the best I've seen him play at the level. Toby Cinema played really well as well, and I liked Noah Hibbins-Hargreaves' game. Although he wasn't able to finish off, he did have some presence inside 50.
100%. I guess from the Oakley side of it, we've really liked the way Kane Emery's gone about it recently in terms of someone who stood up with less talent in the team. He was just super lively around goal, and he was capitalising on all his chances.
Yeah.
He had 3 goals in the first half, and one of those, a lovely goal on the run from 50. He's been standing up recently and been very, very productive.
And playing in the midfield as well. So he's not playing up forward. He's actually kicking goals from the midfield, and brings that burst and energy to that midfield brigade, which is really important. We should touch on the fact that it's a couple of the Oakley boys' last game before they go off and try and get some opportunities at VFL level. Certainly Ollie Barter was one who was really good in his last game. Just showed that speed that he's always had. Unfortunately, he's always going to be up against it with the size that he is, but showed his talent. And Isaac Barry, it was also his last game. But yeah, it was probably Barter and Emery were the 2 standouts in a tough night for the Oakley Chargers.
Move now to Murray and Gippy, and this one was at Port Melbourne on Saturday afternoon. You were at this one, and Gippy got up by 22 points, and they got off to a flying start. We're up 39-6 at one point. Murray kind of called it back, but Gippy too strong in the end. But from all reports, didn't really seem like the most open game in terms of standout talent, but who did kind of put their name forward in a pretty rough contest.
Yeah, there were 2 clear standouts from my point of view. Alex Taru and Asher Eastham, one a intercepting defender and one a marking forward. So Alex Taru, I'll start with. He played a really strong game 5 or 6 weeks ago where he took 7 or 8 intercept marks, and it looked like that was going to propel him for the rest of the season, and he was going to be able to really use it as a launch pad. Unfortunately, he got grounded with a hip injury, which saw him spend some time on the sidelines, but he returned to local level last week, played a game for Warragul Industrials, and then has returned for the Gippy Power on the weekend, and seemed to really pick up where he left off, really, with that intercepting ability, and took some really strong contested marks in amongst that as well. But really understands where to position himself behind the footy. And then Asher Eastham, he kicked 3 goals in the first quarter, and that really set up the Gippy win. Although Murray were able to peg it back, you always felt like Gippy were far too strong, and that was in large part thanks to Asher Eastham's class marking up forward in the first quarter. He was matched up on the Allies listed Ben Kennedy, so to do it against a reputable opponent was really good for his confidence. Unfortunately, only finished with the 4-2. It felt like he could have kicked 7 or 8, but it just didn't quite fall his way. A couple of goal assists, score involvements, and that sort of thing. But those were the 2 clear standouts on the day.
Any others you'd want to bring into it? I guess, you talk about that kind of next those Vic Country boys as well you haven't talked about, who was, I guess, still rolling well.
Yeah, I mean, from the Vic Country perspective, I think Xavier Lindsay and Willem Dersma both played. They were good without being absolute standouts. I thought Harry Canning down back, I talked about him last week. He only had 7 or 8 touches, but when he did impact, it was often via his spoils and that sort of thing, and he didn't allow his direct opponent to take marks on him, so I thought he was really good. And then from a Murray perspective, I thought Max Marnie was quite good. Alex Swinnerton keeps showing why they've thrown him down back. Joe Berry had some really lively moments, 15 disposals and a goal, but it felt like he was there most likely when Murray went forward, and Josh Murphy kicked a couple of goals as well. Someone else I really liked was Tom Forrest, a bottom major who reads the ball really well as an intercept defender.
Move now to Easton and Calder, and I watched this one, and it was an eerily similar game to the one I watched last year, this exact same fixture at Box Hill, where Calder just had a third quarter that was great and got the job done. And I said to you, it was probably a game where really those under-the-radar boys had a bit of a standout and were the ones controlling the tempo of this game. And I'll start with Seth McDonald up the top, who turned it on pretty early and had some really nice moments later. And it was the one thing I was like, where has this been? Not in the sense that he's just hasn't done it, just hasn't seen it yet, was his aerial ability. He took 2 terrific marks, one early, one late, kicked 3 goals in the end, and thought he was super productive for when he did have his hands on the ball. There wasn't really a question of what else could he have done. I thought he did all he could in a pretty lackluster day for Eastern inside 50 entries. It just wasn't as good as it's usually been. And I'll move down back for them with Lockie Doverston and Jack Baldwin, who both kind of switched between having the job of Isaac Kako and providing real one-on-one presence, which I thought both did really well, because although Kako did have 25 touches, that was definitely higher up the ground. And I don't think he was as impactful there as what he usually is inside 50. Not to say Kako wasn't good when he was pushed up the ground, but a player like that, you want to limit his impact on the scoreboard, and they definitely did that in the end. He only kicked 1 goal for the day, so I thought those two definitely should have held their heads up high with those performances.
And good to see Jack Baldwin not only shutting down, but also winning 28 touches of his own. You talk about Seth McDonald, good to see him getting back to some good footy after obviously that concussion just absolutely ruined his sort of first month of the season. Cody Anderson, fresh off 16 goals and 16 disposals and 2 goals for Box Hill, 27-1. How'd you see his performance?
Yeah, it was, again, it's very prototype Cody Anderson. Like, you know what you're going to get. He's tough. He's got that burst out of stoppages. I still have to put a question mark on his kicking at times, moving inside 50. That was the only thing that let him down, because otherwise there was nothing else that I could have faulted him for. You know, the second effort's a second to none, really. Like, just so good. And that's how he pinched through one of his goals, just through that second tackle and toes it off the ground. Clean hands. So, yeah, you can't complain with the way he plays. It's just a matter of tidying up that finishing touch, moving inside 50, and it will just elevate him that next echelon up.
Anyone else of note from a Rangers perspective?
I liked the way Lincoln Wright went about it. Some really good choices when he moved up forward and presented really well. And Christian Moraes probably wasn't one of his best games, but he just has those 10-minute patches where he can turn it on really quickly, provides that run and burst on the outside. Yeah, really good offensive run, kicked a nice goal. One of those Christian Moraes goals from 50. I don't even have to say anything. You could visualise in your head without watching. But yeah, that's probably from the Eastern perspective.
And then from Calder off the top, it was Nash King and Damon Hollow who were the leading disposal getters. I'll let you lead off with those two Vic Metro listed boys. Yeah,
I mean, Nash King, I feel like he just needs to be a bit more damaging, because he knows how to get his hands on the footy. You can't fault the way he uses it, but I just feel like he's
a real inside player, isn't he?
Yeah.
Releases teammates.
You don't want to fall into that where kind of someone like a Ferronato last year, where they know how to get the footy, but can they be that next bit damaging? But he was still really productive in that sense. Loved the way Damon Hollow went about it. You can definitely tell he's high on confidence at the moment. It was some defensive efforts I loved as well, some good spoils, just really composed by foot, and his footy IQ has gone up every game he's played, and that's definitely been evident and created a lot of good separation on his opponent. And I like that they moved him to the outside of Metro, because it feels like that's just completely elevated his game now, and you saw that on the weekend as well.
Pat said kicked 3 goals, and good to see him playing some good footy. Also finished with the 24 disposals, and he's linked together some really strong form for the Calder Cannons the last few weeks.
Yeah, 100%. Him and Kane Rutley were both terrific inside forward 50. They just always seem to be a constant threat. And Harry Ryan, I should add into that conversation as well. I think those three work so well together to find really good space. They work so well with the midfield to lead well. They were productive at the drop of the ball. I mean, even Pat said taking really good intercept marks defensively as the ball was coming out of their forward 50 and stopping those moments where Easton could have got forward, and he was terrific, along with Kane Rutley, who were terrific. They all hit the scoreboard, and they were all, even Harry Ryan kicked a really nice karate kick type goal in the first half, and it was, I reckon, one of Calder's best team performances so far this year. And like I said, it was eerily similar to the game I watched last year in the way that went. I'll move now to Geelong and Northern, and you saw this one.
Yep.
Tell me a bit about the top performers in this one, and it was a pretty big win. Geelong won by 52 in the end.
Yeah, it did turn into a pretty big win, but it was quite an even first half. I guess I'll start from a Geelong perspective, and I thought it was Cooper Ward and Sam Sinnott which really propelled the victory. Cooper Ward really good inside 50. He had lots of presence, and he was really elusive as well. He was willing to get involved multiple times in a possession chain and was a big reason why they were able to create that buffer on the scoreboard. Really liked his first half, kicked 3 goals. Sam Sinnott was one who connected well going forward as well, and his disposal efficiency was really good, created a lot of overlap. Noah Tulio was quite busy and found a fair bit of the footy as well. And I guess River Stevens, I thought, without having an absolute standout game, showed that class at times, probably more of a moments game from him. And Joe Pike, worth touching on, just absolutely dominated in the middle and gave his midfielders first use, but also was able to get involved around the ground. And yeah, it was another strong performance to add to Joe Pike's growing CV in 2024.
Northern perspective, it felt like Zach Johnson and Christian Lawson had pretty identical stat lines in the end, 28 touches and 1 goal, but I guess what was the difference between their 2 games?
Yeah, well, Zach Johnson spent some time down back, and we know he's been sort of reprising that half-back role to show his versatility at times in recent weeks, which has been really good to see, and he patrolled that quite well. He closed down space and worked really hard when he spent some time in the midfield as well. He was really productive. Christian Lawson was one who was willing to put his head over the footy, and I think that's what we've become accustomed to with Christian Lawson. His willingness to win the contested footy, and his quick hands, his ability to release teammates. You talk about it with Nash King, and I think Christian Lawson has that similar willingness to get dirty and do the difficult stuff in the contest. Really liked his game. Gab Stumpf had some nice moments as well, presenting at the footy, and Lucas McInerney, he's one that always catches my eye, and yeah, did some nice things as well on the outside, showed his work rate.
Any others from that game?
I think those were the main ones. Hugo Milkunda was one who showed some really nice moments, but yeah, no, that probably sums up that game. I'll move to Bendigo and Sandy now, and Sandy getting the job done, 13-5-83 to 10-12-72 over the Bendigo Pioneers. A disappointing result for the Pioneers, who had access to all their talent on the weekend with Archer Day Weeks and Toby Travaglio and these sort of Vic Country boys playing. You know, Sandy obviously weakened by the absence of schoolboys, and Bendigo, still unable to get the job done. Apparently they gave away 3 6-6-6 free kicks in the last 7 or 8 minutes of that one, so pretty disappointing result. James Barrett played down back, took some really nice marks. Max Holt took a step towards his best, kicked a goal and presented really well at the footy. Inside 50, Lockie Hogan finishing with the 28 touches, and Toby Travaglio.
Big game.
Yeah, 28 and 3.
So. Huge. And Archer Day Weeks as well.
Yeah.
Good last quarter as well. So, yeah, pretty disappointing. That's the question I have with Bendigo is, can they match it with the Metro teams? That'll be their floor come finals, because they're definitely competitive, and that's probably not the result they wanted in the end, but look, I think they'll learn from that.
We'll move to the GWV versus Tasmania Devils game, one that you saw, Nathan. Now, we do have to preface off the top that there was a little bit of technical difficulties with this game, which was watched on stream. So I think 15 to 20 minutes, which was quite an instrumental 15 to 20 minutes, unfortunately, in the context of the game, was cut out. But from what you did see, I know you were really high, I think in the first half in particular, on the performance of Jonty Fall, which is really good to see, because he obviously came back, kicked the 5 goals. They didn't play him in the first country game, but he's now kicked 3 goals, 1 for GWV against Tassie. Yeah,
he's definitely the focal point of that forward line, just with he's just got that height, and his ability at ground level I thought was terrific as well. And luckily I saw all 3 of his goals, which was good. So at least I could see the way he was kicking them. But he was really aggressive at the drop of the ball. I thought that was something new and added that extra element to his forward craft, and clean hands, was strung up the ground as well, took some good marks, pushing higher up the ground, similar to a Michael Rudd of last year, was just able to push forward and take some good contested marks. But all around, he's really built himself so nicely into his return into footy, and should be back in the country squad next week.
Mitch Lloyd was one who got better as the game went on, and I know you've also touched on the likes of Connor Wiedemann, Jack O and Reggie Mast throughout the game. How did you see their performances?
Yeah, Mitch Lloyd, in all honesty, started probably the worst you'd ever see him start a football game. So clumsy with his disposal. It was very unlike the way we've seen him play, but credit to him, he completely switched it up after that point, and he was so clean, so precise with his ball movement, was really just switched on. He was taking a few good intercept marks as well inside 50, and loved the way he was just able to fix his game, and I guess impact in other ways, where whilst his disposal wasn't working, it was his defensive efforts higher up the ground as well. So he was terrific. Yeah, I mean, Jack O had some nice moments, some good strength one-on-one, lowered his eyes really well. Ollie Hannaford as well, one of my personal favourites to watch with his pressure acts was on again and kicked two really nice goals, might I add. Two nice set shots. Just
really positive to hear as well, because like you say, we know what he can do from a defensive point of view, but to do it, show his offensive flair, which we know he's got, is really positive. From a Tassie point of view, Ollie DePoli, Q-Bank and Lenny Douglas, the two Allies boys, both had some moments. Lenny Douglas able to hit the scoreboard, which was good to see.
Yeah, Lenny Douglas did. He was able to. Shame I didn't get to see all his goals, but the goals he did kick were... He's one that just pounces so well on the footy, and when he generates a bit of run with the football in hand, he's just so powerful, able to run through. I thought he had a few less desirable moments inside 50 where he needed to lower his eyes and look around. That's just... he's someone that you can tell is a little low on confidence from the champs and just needs to have that real good moment in these games to build himself, but he's been really productive at Tassie level. Yeah, Ollie DePoli Q-Bank was definitely one of the best for Tassie. Again, shame. I feel like he just turned it on the second the stream went, because he was quieter in the first quarter, worked his way into it, stream cuts, miss it, but in that last quarter he was just always on his toes moving forward offensively. Loved his tackle pressure as well, and up forward as well, hit the scoreboard. So that was terrific. And the last one from Tassie that I think really needs to get a mention the way he played was Dan Cooney. Loved his energy inside forward 50, committed to a lot of aerial contests and was rewarded with Bly going up, took a few good marks, kicked a really good goal early, and was really composed when he moved a bit deeper up the ground and was able to find some loose targets inside 50. Toby Callow, Dom Pitt as well, I think definitely deserve a mention for their performances.
We'll touch on the boys' Coates Talent League ladder now. Tassie leading that at the moment on 28 points, followed by Sandy, Geelong, Calder and Gippsland all on 24 points. Skippy have had a really good last month or so of form. Murray and Eastern on 20 points, Dandenong on 18 points, Western, Northern and Bendigo all on 16 points, and GWV and Oakley on the 4 points. We move to the Coates Talent League girls now, and we'll start with the game that you watched, Nathan, and that was the contest between the Northern Knights and the Oakley Chargers, with the Oakley Chargers getting up 7-8-50 to 5-8-38, a 12-point victory, but a really impressive showing from Northern. We know how dominant Oakley have been at times this season, so perhaps we'll start with the Northern girls. Who took your eye?
Yeah, well, it was definitely Kira Lemire that took my eyes early on, and whilst the stats only say she had 12 touches, those three goals kicked were a product of how efficient she was inside forward 50. Her marking ability was definitely one of the best for Northern. I feel like everything that went in, she was able to get her hands on. Kicked a really nice set shot on a tight angle. It was not far out, but one of those where it just could have gone either way, but just slotted it through really nicely. Her pack marks were just terrific, and thought she didn't keep Northern in it. They were ahead, and I reckon they were unlucky to lose it. Oakley just had that extra bit of poise late in the game, but yeah, Lemire was terrific. I thought her forward efforts was so strong and so effective.
Who else stood out for the Knights?
Yeah, Talia Plunkett was definitely, and Holly Ridewood were probably the other two that I think were just consistent workhorses for Northern through the middle of the ground. And it was a game where there wasn't a lot of clean possession, especially in the second half of that game. It was loose in the middle a lot of times, but she battled really smartly one-on-one, Talia Plunkett, with Sienna Tallaredi, one that you'd expect Tallaredi to win that one-on-one, but she was able to outsmart her, read the drop of the ball really well, exposed her with speed, and her kicking down the line was terrific. Took some good marks later as well. And Holly Ridewood, her tackle pressure was elite and had a really good rundown tackle in the third quarter. Just thought her kicking needed to be a bit cleaner in the end.
On the Oakley side of things, Abby Vicino kicked the 3 goals and had 18 possessions, and Bailey Martin, very close to a really big confidence-boosting breakout performance for the under-16s All-Australian girl, kicked the 1 goal 4, so just disappointing with the finishing polish, but still had the 15 touches and 5 shots on goal. Who took your eye from the Chargers side? Yeah, well,
Abby Vicino, she kicked a very clutch goal in the third quarter to get the Chargers back in the lead, and felt like she was always there when the ball dropped inside forward 50. Maggie Marnie was probably the one that took my eye the most, and I feel like she's been taking a lot of people's eyes the last couple of weeks with her performances. A really good intercepting presence, I thought, when the ball was coming out of Northern's forward line. Sorry, out of Oakley's forward line. She was able to be there and fill the gap really nicely. She was poised inside 50 and just was relieving a lot of pressure when the ball was going in Northern's forward line. So those were probably the main two from an Oakley's perspective. And Emma McDonald, I thought she had some good moments inside forward 50 where I thought she showed a bit more than just a normal goal kicking presence. She was able to be effective at ground level as well. So I think, in honesty, Northern are a good chance at winning the premiership. That's what I took out of that. Watching the way that the only thing that's going to stop them is their poise in tight moments. They were just a bit too clumsy late on. You just can't afford against a team like Oakley I felt like at times, I think I said to you, like they just had to pick it up. There were times where you just needed someone to just really take a hold of it and get it moving forward. But yeah, I think they could definitely contend for a premiership. I mean, I think they only lost to Eastern by, 2 goals. Like, if we're saying Oakley and Eastern are the two best teams, and they're easily the
and I'd throw Dandenong into that category as well. Western had a really strong comeback over the Calder Cannons. Calder getting out to a really fast start, but Western able to reel them in a 4-0 last quarter, seeing them get over the line by 5 points, 45-40. From a Western perspective, Mira Diab kicked 2 goals, and that was really crucial on the day, and they were usually serviced by Alex McBride-Lone, who's starting to become a really consistent contributor for them and will be one to watch in the next 12 to 18 months. Sierra Greaves was kept a little bit quieter, but still had 19 disposals and kicked the 1 goal. Olivia Costello and Hannah Brody also with some strong performances on the Calder side of things. Good to see Kyla Forbes piecing together some strong form, and Jade McClay was really good as well.
Move to Eastern and Sandy now, and Eastern got the job done 98-8. So a pretty big win. Sandy really struggling to find some form at the moment. But Georgia Knight finished with 3 goals. Saw one of her goals on the Eastern post on Instagram. Really nice snap, and had the taking a picture celebration. That's such a typical Georgia Knight thing to do. Yeah. Gets everyone up and about. Love to see that. Grace Bellany, 2 goals and 25 touches. Caught a really nice goal Zoe Vozzo kicked in the third quarter when I turned it on. She's been terrific for Eastern, I've thought, lately. Her forward craft and her energy has been terrific. But yeah, it was a pretty standard Eastern performance from the sense turned up and executed really well.
Move to Murray and Tassie now down in the Apple Isle. Tassie getting the job done 7-4-46 to 3-8-26. But Murray quite competitive in this one, particularly in the first half. Unfortunately, they weren't able to sustain it, and Tassie ultimately able to outlast them. Priya Bowering stringing together some strong form. Harriet Bingley as well as a bottom major, 14 disposals and 2 goals. Really opportunistic. Mackenzie Williams' pressure is really strong, and she's improving by the week, it feels like. So really good to see her piecing together some strong form, and the powerful Lucy Thompson very good as well. From a Murray perspective, Ali Hall, Nikita Spiteri, and Rose Bell. Rose Bell's had a really strong month of footy, so good to see her sustain it. And then GWV versus Bendigo. Good to see GWV get up in this one. We know Bendigo had a few wins to start the season. GWV haven't had that outcome-based success so far in 2024, but Millie Lang really leading that victory alongside Bella Davies, who's been really strong for them, and Jovi Skews Clinton. Well, for Bendigo, we're getting accustomed to saying that Lou Painter leads the way. She did so again, 33 disposals and a goal, and she was the main one for them. Sienna Hobbs, after that really strong Vic Country trial, took some really strong marks as well. But that wraps it up from a girls' point of view. We'll just quickly go through the girls' talent
ladder and tips. Yep. So Oakley sit at the top with 28, Eastern back in second with 24 points. Tassie joined them as well. Gippy, Dandy on 20, Northern, Geelong. It feels like Northern's spot in the ladder doesn't indicate how well they've been going. Northern, Geelong on 16, Bendigo, Sandy, Rebels 12, Western jump Calder into 11th on 8, Calder 1 win, and Murray still looking for their first win. Go to next week's tips with the girls. Williamstown, Western and Eastern. Eastern as well. Northern and Sandy. Northern as well. Calder and Oakley. Oakley as well. Dandy and Bendigo.
Dandenong.
Geelong and Murray.
Geelong.
And then probably the game of the round, I think this will be a good indication of where both teams are at, is Tassie and Gippy.
I would say that Gippy will be too strong in a home game for this one.
Yeah, well, Tassie would be annoyed. It's at Shepley and it's their home game. But I I'll just split for one and I'll go Tassie. I broke away a little bit on the tips. I got perfect for the girls and one off for the boys. I'm now up by 6, so bit of a gap you've got to catch me at now. But
just before we touch on the boys' tips, I just want to touch on some strong performances in the Sandy versus Oakley match last week. We watched this on Friday night. We didn't touch on it in the podcast last week. There was so much other footy to touch on. Zane Cochran really good in the midfield alongside Kane Emery, as we touched on earlier in the podcast. Jack Dalton made his debut for Sandy after an injury-interrupted start to the season. Had some rust, but showed some really strong signs. Louis Emmett, as a key position player, was really strong as well. Mitch Kirkwood-Scott played a key role in Sandy's dominance, but what turned into a come-from-behind win, obviously. Oakley able to level it up late. Waylon Davey-Motlop kicked the 5 goals and was really impressive with his X-factor inside 50. And Quinn Mackay took 3 contested marks, kicked 3 goals in a 5-minute period to basically dragged Oakley from the doldrums of defeat almost to victory. Ultimately, it was Harry Armstrong who kicked a goal after the siren. He was matched up on Tyger McCarthy all day. I think he would have said Tyger McCarthy won that battle. And then in the last 10 minutes, Harry Armstrong kicked 2 crucial goals and got Sandy over the line. Sandy winning that one by 6 points in a game that did include some schoolboys. Oakley still depleted with some players missing through injury in that one. Tom Wenzel and Blake Lidler among them. Now, some tips. Dandenong versus Bendigo this week at Shepley on the boys' side of things.
It's a difficult one to pick. You go and I'll just split.
I'm going to say Bendigo are going to make a statement and win by 8 goals. They need to.
Okay, and I'll go Dandy.
Gippsland versus Geelong.
Did you say 8 goals?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm a bit slow at this time of night, but 8 goals. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so what was the next
They'll want to bounce back from what happened on the weekend, I think. Gippsland versus Geelong.
This will be a good one as well. I've loved the way Gippy have been playing recently. They hit form at this time of year usually.
I will go Gippy as well. Murray and GWV.
GWV are competitive, but they just can't get that winning edge at the moment, so I'll go Murray.
So will I. Now we'll move on to the WA versus SA game, which you watched on Sunday. Nathan, tell us about the game. Obviously, WA were far too strong for SA and ran out comfortable victors, and it was a win that was really set up by their tall forwards.
Yeah, 100%. It was a game where I think SA went in playing their weakest team, expecting it would still probably get them over the line, and it didn't in the end, and WA took full advantage of that and were so dominant in the end. But yeah, it was their tall forwards that really took centre stage. Max Raw was the first one. He kicked 3 goals in the end, and wasn't just his tall forward craft, his marking ability above his head. He was great at ground level as well. I thought he had some really good moments. Crummy and his spatial awareness inside 50 to size up how much time, what opportunity he had with the ball in hand, I thought was terrific. And he kicked 2 goals in a row in the first quarter and really set himself up for a big game. So I think he finished with 4 goals. But yeah, and later in the game, he did show his contested strength where he was able to put himself on the map that way. And Cal Guerin was the other one who finished with 3. And I guess the difference was he was probably a bit better at ground level to kick a few goals in open play, kicked a really nice snap for his first goal. His intercept presence as well, further up the ground, was really good in transition. Just a strong presence with his leading patterns, and yeah, kicked an easy goal for his efforts in the third quarter just out the back. So both of them really stood up and probably put themselves as the top 2 on the day.
I think there'll be natural interest in the plight of Malachi Champion, obviously an AFL Academy prospect, and Bo Allen playing his first game in the championships. How'd those 2 boys go?
Yeah, well, I thought it was definitely a limited game from Malachi. He kicked the 1 goal, which was a typical Malachi Champion goal, a snap inside 50 on a loose ball. But his presence was definitely felt a lot higher up the ground where a small forward's pushing up to try and play that midfield type role almost. And his hands were pretty quick. I didn't think he did too much wrong generally. I thought his kicks could have been a bit better, just needed a little more poise moving inside 50. But overall, his transitional presence was definitely there at times, but compared to these first game, was probably a little quieter than usual. And Bo Allen was terrific. He felt his presence for WA. That's someone who comes in and makes an impact just like that. And he can he's a game winner the way he plays, and such a big difference in the way WA approached that game. But his intercepting ability was terrific, and we saw that back in the AFL Academies game against Footscray, where played off half back and was terrific with his physicality. He's just got quick hands into space. His kicking down the line was terrific. He holds his width really well on the outside, and that's along with his general burst and speed. So both both of those two, I think, just played pretty productive games and did their chances no harm.
And tell us about a few others on the day. There was some other WA small forwards that stood up, and then Lucas Camporeale led the way for a I guess, underwhelming South Australia outfit.
Yeah, well, Blake Kelly's the one I want to touch on for WA, who is a bottom major for Swan Districts, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, his strength in the contest was terrific. He's a real big-bodied, I'd say half-forward type, but you could definitely see him, a type like him, moving into the midfield as his development progresses. But he's just had a real strong leading presence. Got unlucky to... Well, a set shot he had early in the game was just touched on the line, but his tenacity is terrific. He's one that he's so committed to winning the footy. His crumbing ability inside 50 was really good, and yeah, it feels like he could play the role of a small forward, but he probably isn't a small forward. He just has that real tenacity where he wants to get his hands on it that quickly. Thought he was really good. Will Hayes played a really similar role along with Cody Angove, who really just had nice forward presence to read the drop of the ball really well, and that's where SA were really hurt in the end. And I'll go to Lucas Camporeale, who you touched on, who I thought was definitely the standout for SA. Improved with his kicking, I thought, a lot more this game. His composure out at D50 was really neat and definitely helped SA a lot of times when WA were coming in with repeat entries. He took a few good intercept marks in D50 and just generally around the contest as well. He provided his work rate along with his brother Ben. That's kind of the hallmark of their game, their work rate and their run and carry when they do get the opportunity. So Lucas was definitely the standout for the SA.
Very good. Does that just about wrap up the SA versus WA game?
I'll touch on just a few more midfielders and I say touch on, just literally go through a few out of general interest. I guess Sid Draper's the one that a lot would be interested in. Thought he provided these work rate. He was connecting with his hands in the stoppages. He was getting free inside 50, but they were really getting peppered, SA. Like, their opportunity with ball in hand was so limited. And that was and Sid Draper's performance is probably a byproduct when a player like that is being reduced that much. Louis Montgomery was also very good, I thought, for someone who isn't really their number one or two midfielder. He was really productive through the corridor, took a few good intercept marks and really strong hands. Dyson Sharp, pretty similar to Sid Draper in the end, and Tyler Welsh was really reduced one-on-one by the likes of someone like a Cody Curtin, who we talked about last week. He didn't kick a single goal, Tyler Welsh. He had 2 set shots on goal and missed both, so he was kept really quiet.
Very well summed up, a comprehensive wrap of the national championships, which will continue this week, and we'll continue giving those wraps as we do go through them. But we've got a statement makers team to construct now, and the way we did this last time is I give my best 22 of statement makers and you give your statement makers 22. Then we'll combine our 22, put the team on Instagram. If you want to see our justifications, you want to see our individual teams, then you come and watch the video. But I guess the only things that we should touch on off the top is this isn't a best 22. This is a 22 of players, particularly under the radar players, but players who have really enhanced their prospects in the last 6 or 7 weeks of footy. We're taking into consideration Coates Talent League footy, and we're taking into consideration Championships footy. We're not taking into consideration schoolboys footy, so that's something we ought to touch on. But if we start from the full back line, I'll read mine out and give some justifications, and then I'll throw to you. But I've gone with Harry Oliver, based really strongly off his excellent start to the National Championships. Charlie Orchards had a really strong 5 weeks, and Lockie Hogan has continued to prove what he can do, and he did it at the next level playing for the Allies a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, similar. Okay, yep. Charlie Orchard, yep. Harry Oliver, yep. Alex Swinnerton fits in that first line, but he's the one player I kind of said to you, he doesn't fit in that, but his defensive attributes, I think he just needs to be in this 22, right? But whether he's no,
whether he's halfback, whether he's
but needs to get a mention.
But from a halfback perspective, I've gone Toby Travalia, whose defensive desperation has been excellent. Mitchell Lloyd's had a really strong 6 or 7 weeks of form, and Harry Charlson as well from the GWV Rebels.
Xavier Lindsay, whether he's too high profile to get in this team, you could probably debate, but I just love the way he's gone about it. Harry Oliver, Toby Travalia to round out.
Your centre line, mine is Damon Hollow on the wing, based really strongly on his last couple of weeks of form, but I'm happy to put him on the wing based on what he did for Vic Metro. Cooper Hines has been just about the form player of the CTL, I feel like. And Ollie Hannaford isn't necessarily a winger, but he's shown his versatility, and I've got a lot of defenders in this team, so I wanted to fit him in somewhere, so I've put him on the wing.
Yeah. They're pretty similar in personnel. I've got Damon Hollow as well, Harvey Langford and Noah Tullio on my other to round it out.
Yep. Half forward line, I've gone Patrick Said, who's been very good for Calder in the last few weeks. I've gone Asher Eastham as your marking forward, centre half forward, and I've gone Jasper Olga, who had a really strong trial and then carried that form into his first game for Vic Country.
Yeah, a few names which you've said that I've kind of had thrown up, but interesting to see you've gone. I've gone Asher Eastham. I've gone Matt Whitlock. I thought because I got to think we've done this. It's been a while since we've done the last one, and he had some very good performances in that period. And Jimmy Barrett, hit the scoreboard. So yeah.
And then on my full forward line, I've gone James Barrett. I've put him at full forward. I've gone Joe Berry, who continues to deliver, and I thought Jack Garrardi had to get into this team just with his pure ability to hit the scoreboard.
We're very similar here. Joe Berry, Jonty Fall. He's only played 2 games.
Yeah, I was
but
very close to putting him in. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, you could probably argue he's at the top end and shouldn't be in this team, but he's played 2 games, so he's still got to earn his spot back in that top 10 discussion. And Gab Stumps, I thought since the last one has been pretty productive.
I've gone. In my ruck line, I've gone Lucas Impey as the ruck. I think his form the last 5 or 6 weeks has been mind-blowing, really, in terms of the rate of his development. Really aggressive, and good to see him get the opportunity at Vic Metro level. The numbers might not have reflected it, but I liked his game in the first National Champs game. Harvey Langford as well, he's been really strong and showed that in the first Metro game. And Jagger Smith, I think, has taken his game to the next level. I don't think he could have scripted 50 disposals, 40 disposals, and 32 disposals in the first Metro game.
No, he couldn't have. I mean, he's not in my team because I was like, well, he's like a top 5. I know you're not wrong. I just couldn't put someone like him in this team. But Impey, I've gone Hines in this where you've gone him up, and I've got the Zivotron, Xavier Ivicic. Look, he's probably just gets in this team, and that Champs performance probably just stapled that. Yeah, he does have that ability to really take it to the next level.
And then, interchange bench, I've gone Connor Evans, who played a breakout game right on the precipice of Champs and has had a really strong 5 or 6 weeks. Alex Tarou's played 2 really good games for the Gippy Power. Cody Anderson's continued where he's left off in the first 3 weeks. And Zach Johnson is someone who can go across half-back, go into the midfield as well. I've liked his form. Kane Hurst is there or thereabouts as well. He's been good as a defender.
Luca Gregor, I think, has continued on his good form. Ollie DePauli Qbank, I think you had to have a Tassie in there. He'd be the one that has been very good at Allies level with his almost a small forward craft. He's been really impactful in the forward half. Jake Girardi and Ollie Hannaford. Okay, we're back. We've combined both our squads and we've spent about the last 10, 15 minutes off camera having a debate about it. But we've settled here with our final squad, and we'll read out line by line and who makes our final team. There will be a graphic on Instagram if you're listening to this on Wednesday night that will go out tomorrow for a nice visualisation of it. But on the fullback line, Harry Oliver, Charlie Orchard and Lockie Hogan.
On the halfback line, Toby Travalia, Mitch Lloyd and Xavier Lindsay.
In the middle, on the wings, Damon Hollow, Cooper Hines and Ollie Hannaford on the other wing.
On the half forward line, Asher Eastham, Matt Whitlock and Jasper Olga.
Deep forwards, Joe Berry, James Barrett and Ollie DePauli Qbank.
Our ruck is Lucas Impey. Our midfielders are Harvey Langford and Xavier Ivicic.
Then on the bench, Jack Girardi, got that right this time, Noah Tullio, Connor Evans and Pat Said. So that's our unofficial All-Australian squad for now. Well, All-Australian in the Talent League, but...
Victorian.
And
Tasmanian.
Yeah, there you go. But we will do another one, TBD, probably post-champs and close to the end of the season. Like we said, we'll do the second version of the girls probably after the first round of champs games for Vic Metro and Vic Country. But that's about all for this week's episode. Next week, few Talent League games to go through. It's kind of a quiet patch at the moment with Talent League because this is heavy champs time. WA and Vic Metro boys take place this weekend at Optus stadium over in Perth, and yeah, we'll figure out something else to talk about as well. But thank you all for watching or listening. Make sure to check out our socials for more content, and we'll see you in the next episode.